this is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. You are special. And my guest today is quite special. Her name is Marla Mase, and Marla started a project, probably not something that she had planned on many years ago. And that's why I invited her on this program, because when we're in that maze of life, we think we know where we're going, and then something happens, we get stuck. And Marla, I'm going to let you tell your story, but I have a feeling that at one point you were stuck, but you found your way out of the maze by creating something very special for yourself, but it's going to be very special to those of us who get to hear it and get to understand it. So why don't you tell us about the LEL Project and how did you get to all this?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for inviting me on. Yeah, the maze, definitely been a maze life. So, okay, so 7 years ago, my daughter died by suicide, and she had been struggling. She was 24, like a month short of turning 25. Her name is Lael. So the project that we're doing is based on her name. And she has struggled for a really long time with anorexia and depression and anxiety, and really hit hard at 11 years old. Probably earlier, but we just didn't think that when someone behaves a certain way when they're two, that it's depression. That's because it's not really so much in my family. Anxiety, yes, but not all these. Um, and so it started at 11, and in terms of the maze part, just like, so at 11 she had an eating disorder, and it was a big deal, but I really wasn't exposed to eating disorders before that. So it was very scary. She lost 26 pounds in like a month and a half. And I remember, like, she went and then she had an adolescent doctor, and like there's like things that you do, you look it up, like, okay, you read about it. Oh, nutrition, adolescent medical doctor, nutritionist, psychiatrist maybe, and then you'll be okay, like you just do these things. And then, like, 3 years later, I was like, whoa, like, this is not that you just do this, this, and this, and you're okay. Like how extreme eating disorders are. And I learned a lot about eating disorders, and you know that actually they are anorexia is the leading cause of death amongst of any mental illness. Anorexia is the one that causes the
Wow,
most death. Yeah, and
unbelievable.
I never knew that because when you're not exposed to it, even though the interesting thing is about eating disorders is that, um, like when my daughter was struggling at the beginning, like I would tell people, because I always share my story, which is part of what this project is about.
Sure.
I believe in sharing your story for me, being open about it because it heals me to share, but it also gives other people the permission then to be like, you know what? Me too. Or I've had a similar thing. That would happen when I used to tell people about my daughter when she was like, my daughter has an eating disorder, and I'd say more than one out of two would say, oh, I also had an eating disorder when I was young, or I have one now, or, so many things. So that was like, well, how prevalent it really is. And it's not just something that you see like, haha, like a celebrity who has anorexia, let's like make fun of it kind of thing. Anyway, so that's just the short of it. So she struggled a long time, but with depression, because really it was the depression was the underlying thing of the eating
Sure.
disorder. And so she was in many treatment centers. Five, by the time she was 15, there was a place that she went to in Arizona, not in Arizona. She did go somewhere in Arizona, but there was a place in Utah that she went that actually really saved her life. Like she went there, and I was like, she's going to stay there like for a long time. And they said it was like one of the hardest cases they've ever had. She wasn't belligerent or like defiant. That wasn't her thing. It was more like just her internal like self-harm type stuff. And but it saved her life, and she admitted that. And then she came back and went to college, and but the depression, it just kept, like, there were a few years where it seemed I never felt out of the woods. I'm talking about the
Right.
maze. We were in the maze, it's by 17, it was just like, whoa, like, other people's kids are just having, teenagers tough anyway, but like, still maybe more what you think is normal. I don't know what it is now because kids are really struggling. But with me, it was just like my kid's like in her fifth, and she, treatment center. And she was also someone when she was young who was, and continued to be through her life, extremely creative, absolutely beautiful. The girl who had everything, super smart, great family, great friends, you know, like glamorous, like always love shopping, like not the person, that I, would ever have imagined or anyone would think there would be something struggling with. So we were in the maze big time, and then she went to college. She was in a elite program in USC for music. She was an amazing singer, which is part of the project, and I will get to that. And but then she had even though we were out of the woods, like at 4 years, she had two suicide attempts, 2013 and on election day in 2016. So it's coming, and it was a really, and maybe and a couple other attempt-ish things before, but those were like two solid ones. The one on election day was really bad. I feel like I just really got an extra 8 months out of that. I thought she might have tried to kill herself, and I had our friends break down her door in LA. I was in New York, and they found her, and she came back to live with me in Brooklyn for the last 8 months. So all this being said, it's no. When I was young and imagined my life with my family and my children, I never in a million years would have thought that I'd be like the mother whose kid killed themselves, and my son is struggling with mental health issues as well.
You
Um,
know, and it's not unusual for our youth to feel this way. And I wish we could figure out what is so different today than it was when we were growing up. But my son also went through the thoughts of suicide, never made the attempt, but talked about it a lot. And, um, I was constantly struggling. Is this for attention? Is this for real? And sometimes you share that with other people, but if they're not the right people, you get the wrong response. And my son, in his senior year of high school, called up a friend who he thought he could trust. And
mhm,
he said, if things don't change, I got to take my life.
yeah,
The young boy told his mother it took her 4 weeks to say something to me. And she said it to me at a senior high school basketball game. And my son was the student manager. And I knew he was struggling that night. And I kept saying to him, if you can't participate, let's just go home. And no, I got to be here. And she came over to me and she said, do you know your son's talking about suicide? And
mhm,
my aunt, I looked at her and I said, we've talked about this in the past, but not recently. And she said, oh, yes, 4 weeks ago. And my answer to her was, why didn't you say something sooner?
right,
I was lucky. My son has a will to live. So his words were not as strong as his will.
right. Well,
But in your daughter's case, this
it
started
was kind of,
very, very
first of all, I'm
young.
sorry to hear about your son because that's hard, and the kids are, it's very hard. And I have learned, I mean, there are things that I learned, obviously, over this time, I've learned a lot because I was not exposed to any of this. So it's kind of, but I've learned certain things about suicide ideation. And because that was one of her strong, like, actually issues was suicide ideation and suicidality, because she did, even at 13. Um, so what I have learned, which I didn't know earlier, is that obviously, you really have to take it seriously. It doesn't mean the person's going to do it. Most people, my daughter was in treatment centers. Really, I don't know any other kid, at least in those treatment centers that she's been with, that actually killed themselves. So just to say, like, for hope out there, that just even if that's happening, it doesn't mean that that's going to be the thing. Now, my daughter's will to not be here, my daughter had an extremely strong will. Like what she wanted, she went for it. She was like a real Virgo. Like, so she always knew what she wanted. And one of the things was that she just didn't want to be here, which was, even though she said at one point that after that bad suicide attempt on November, election day 2016, when she came out, she said, Mom, I'm just a really sick girl. You don't understand. And like just talking about the depression, like, I come out into the light, but then I know I'm going to be pushed back down into the darkness and I don't want to. And she's like, I know I have a great life. I know I have great family, and I have everything wonderful. But sometimes I actually resent all of you for loving me, for making me stay.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, you know, we actually put it in a play that we all wrote together, including her, about that, because it was something that was just like, wow, to just see like her pain. And there was a moment, not that I ever would ever advocate for anyone to kill themselves, but there was a moment like, what the hell? Like, what do I know about someone's pain? Because the whole thing about suicide being selfish, it's not selfish. I mean, these people are in such pain that they don't want to be here. It's not even that they want to die. They just don't want this pain anymore.
Right.
So it is, they actually think that they're doing a kindness. So a big, huge red flag is I'm a burden. I feel like I'm a burden, because that's a red flag, because that's when people start thinking that, not that they're being selfish, but that if they die, that it'll actually be, that's a selfless act. Like, oh, I will relieve the burden of the family. They don't see it that way.
Exactly.
Um, and so, and you talked about the kids these days, and I have some thoughts, but it's very different than how we grew up. I mean, obviously social media and the
True.
fear of like the world ending. I think a lot of them I remember one person was saying to me, just calm down, because, because the world's ending. And I almost felt like I didn't know what to really respond to that, because I mean, not that I'm so negative, but one of the things, actually, I know I'm not talking about the show with my dad, but one of the things about it that is so inspiring to young people is that here's of someone who's 89 and talking about a story that's, talking about just seeing his life. And then people like, this 123-year-old saw it and said, Howard makes me feel like everything's going to be okay. And that's the other thing, like respecting elders and hearing. And, now there's this whole trend of estrangement,
Right.
and like, that's going to fix my life. Like, if I just become estranged from my parents, now I'll be okay. But there's a deeper level, and I don't have the answers, obviously, about like what is the deep level of despair and anxiety, that is going on now with young people. I can go into like, they have so much, maybe you have to have less. I don't know. But in terms of suicidality, I mean, I feel like I learned some stuff after she died that I wish I had known. Not that, I mean, listen, I never blamed myself. I was fortunate that I never um, felt like, because I had been many years in Al-Anon, I am a grateful member of Al-Anon. And I realized early on that, my issues with my daughter applied to it. She wasn't a drug addict, and, neither is my son. But just that the powerlessness over it, like these mental illnesses, like it's so hard to, you just don't, no one's equipped to know how to handle this with other people.
Exactly.
How do you fix someone's depression? You can't. I mean, you can be supportive, you can listen, and that's part of the LEL Project. And I guess should get to a little bit of that. So my daughter, so anyway, I was just going to say about suicidality. I mean, that's suicidality. And the one thing I did learn after she died that I regretted, in a way, but now I know. So for the future, that when someone is suicidal, don't, like, she was definitely suicidal. I mean, she tried many times. So I knew that she might die. But when she would say things, it was almost like, let's not talk about that. Like, let's focus on something else. Even her therapist, when she died, like, who she was very close to, called me and said she regretted that she herself would try to like have Lael focus on the positive, instead of like, no, actually, if someone's suicidal, they need to be like, hey, are you feeling suicidal today? Like, you have to ask. They may say no, whatever, you can never know what someone say, but how are you feeling? Like checking in and actually opening the conversation for them to not feel ashamed that they feel that they want to kill themselves, and that this is something that they have to keep a secret and don't let anyone know because I don't want to hurt anyone else. And to actually be like, hey, I'm here to listen. Like, what's up? Like, what's going on? That's one of the things that I did not, that I feel that I could, that doesn't mean she would have saved her life, but that I wish I had just been like, hey, you feeling suicidal? Like, what's going on?
And I think we have to look at it that it is a true illness.
Absolutely.
Okay. And like many cancers, we don't have a remedy. Okay. I happen to have an acquaintance who I've had on this show before who also thinks about suicide 24/7. And when I heard that before I had her on the show, it was like, how are you still living? You know, how are you nurturing your son? How are you? She does comedy acts. How do you do all these things? And I learned very wisely from her that this is where her brain goes. She said, you know, she knows when to get into treatment, and she
Mhm.
leaves
Right.
society for a while and goes into treatment. Sadly, there are those of us on the outside, we don't understand. And we look at it as
Right.
shameful, and it's not, because your daughter would not have chosen, if she could have, right from the beginning, to feel this way.
Oh no.
This
E-
was, she had an
Exactly. And she,
So how did you decide that you you wanted to start this project? Was it for your healing, or did you look at it as
it's
healing for others?
both. I just want to say one last thing about suicide. It's a very mysterious thing. And because I'm in it now in the world of a suicide survivor, there's many different stories in suicide that are completely different. Like some people never have a clue that their person's suicidal, never, until they die. Till the day they're like, they thought the person was totally happy, not depressed. I had a clue. So it's a very mixed thing as far as that goes. And those people are really like blown out. They're blindsided because it's like, what? My husband was he was the glass half full guy. Like,
Yeah.
what happened? Anyway, that's just to say. So with my daughter, sorry, I'm hot. I'm in Florida,
Oh,
on doing this show. So okay, the LEL Project basically. So my daughter was an amazing singer, most beautiful, like beautiful voice, and she had released a few albums. And on her album, she was very like her music is her story. So there is stories of she shared her story via her music. So there were songs that were like anthems and really showed her struggle. There was one song called The Good Fight, which was like she considered her anthem, but it was very much about like you know yeah, I don't want to be a revolving door case. Does it ever get better than this? But I have to fight the good fight kind of thing. There were songs that were more like you know about the pain, and there were other songs that were about like the empowerment. Like there's one song, It's About Soul, which we're releasing in like in the next month or two, which is all about like, hey, it's not about my thighs, it's not about my legs, it's not about this, it's about soul, and really like yay girl power stuff. So she really, her story is told. And I remember when she released her albums originally, like some of the reviews, like besides I feel like she's the one to watch out for, were like, wow, she has so much she seems so much older than she is. And some of them even made it like, how does she know this? Like they thought she didn't really, some people were like, as if she didn't really know what she was talking about, but
sure.
she did. She lived it. It was so there, like it's so raw. And so when she died, it was always the intention for me to like do something with her music more, like have more people hear it, re-release it, because she was just an incredible, just because of her talent, and this was a loss. Also, my daughter was very committed to helping other people. And she worked after college, she worked at a residential treatment center, just as like a resident assistant. Then she got
Sure.
promoted to OCD, but she was loved. Like when she died, I mean, people wrote me from the place who had been there. They were like, she's the reason I recovered. It wasn't like their therapist and this, they were like, she was the one. She saw me, she understood because she really understood. I don't know if she
Right.
shared with them her pain, but she knew really what they were going through. And so they were like, she's the reason I'm alive today. And it wasn't just one, it was quite a few. And a bunch of them flew up to New York and went to visit her grave. Some of them still are in touch with me all the time. They really, so that was like, so Lael, had written, and we have some of her writings as well. And her thing was like about all the pain in the world and suffering and how she didn't wish it happened. And if I could just help one person. So for me, the Lael Project, which is what it is yes, it's about, honoring her life and legacy as a person and as someone who is, an incredible artist, but also her legacy as continuing her devotion and commitment to helping other people, to helping just one person, because as we know, helping one person is helping an entire world.
Absolutely. I mean,
That's
that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast. I don't look at how many people have listened to it. What I find out is somebody will write me and say, I heard what Marla had to say. Do you know how that changed my life? Or I heard what Marla had to say. I don't agree with it. And I'll come back and say, okay, let's talk about that. Let's find out why you don't agree with it. Anything that we can do to help each other is is something we have to do in this world. And I'm sure your daughter found that in the treatment centers, but
She did.
it
Um,
wasn't enough.
no, because the treatment centers, I mean, the one that really helped her, but she still, even at the end, she said, yeah, it saved my life. But mom, like my, whatever, like she has her complaints about it, but but it did keep her, I guess the eating disorder not active. It broke, and you know what? When she first died, I kind of went into like immediate acceptance, like, okay, she died. This is what she wanted. Like, that was like the shock. But also, I think there was a part of me that was like, listen, if someone doesn't want to be here, not that. So I didn't, not that I wasn't a pro suicide, not at all. But it took me 7 years. It's 7 years now where I'm finally like, no, she had a shot. She was only 24. And there's always hope when you're alive. And, you know, just seeing with other people's struggles, including my son's, it's like so now I've become more like, no, like stay alive. And, this last month with, it was September was Suicide Awareness Month and
Right.
Prevention Month. So, right, Love in Her Arms. I don't know if you know that organization. They're amazing, but like all their work on, the whole thing was like, you know, pleasestayalive.com, like just stay alive. And now I'm all, yes, I am totally, it took me 7 years. And like I said, again, it wasn't like I was like I wasn't like I was pro, like, yeah, kill
Right.
yourself, not at all. But I still understand. But for me, I want people to breaking the silence. And this is, I'm trying to join, there's a growing community of people, as you're doing, Karen, of people who are sharing their experiences. There's no shame. I'm very open about my stuff. I always have been. I do plays, I write music also about all of it. And some people like it and some people don't because some people don't want to hear it. But that's what I do. And so, like, I believe in, and my daughter as well did that, and my whole family sharing stories. I perform and I do gigs, I do music as well. And I, just finished a tour in England and I started adding in, like, it's an arc, but I started adding in telling the audience that my daughter killed herself at some point. I don't bring them down to, because it's not,
Sure.
but I can't tell you how many people come over to me after I do my show and like it opens them up. They'll hug me. They'll be not about her. They'll be like, thank you so much. Like, we're not used to people just being so open. Like someone in Britain was like, Brits, we're like all this, like we're whole, and like you're just being open and honest about everything is such a relief. And other people saying, my wife tried to kill herself, or this is what happened, or I did, and and we have a conversation. And this and it's not all heavy. Like, I mean, there's always humor and stuff, even in the dark stuff. And but I just believe in, people to know that they don't have to keep it in silence and feel shame because that is a killer. And I recently read a study that said that the ones who get asked to talk about it, and you know it does help prevent, and there's no like specific statistic, but the people who don't and they stay in their silence and they're in this world and they're shameful or whatever, and as it is, it's I just believe in the power of stories and storytelling and sharing our stuff and listening to other stories without telling, without negating feelings. And I have been accused of that. My son is like, Mom, don't negate my feelings, like just hear it. Don't be like, no, you have a great life. There's no reason for you to be depressed. Or why are you suicidal? There's so many people who have it worse than you, because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. You know, I
That
I remember just about the same time frame. Probably was closer to 2014. I was working in corporate America and it just wasn't working for me, but I didn't realize it wasn't. And I fell into a very deep depression. And we went home to visit my mother up in Michigan because she would call me and I'd be crying on the phone and she'd be like, what's wrong? And I'd use the word, I'm depressed. And it was like, put a smile on your face, she'll be okay. And so we went up to Detroit, and my youngest son looks at her and says, my mother is depressed. She will work through it. Do not tell her to smile. If she wants to smile, she will smile. If she wants to cry, she will cry. And it took a grandchild to tell my mother that this was real. And it
I
was
mean, that's
phenomenal after that. because my mother claimed that she didn't know what depression was. She never experienced it. Yet I found out years later, yes, my mother knew what depression was. She just hid it well. Now, some of us
You
can walk
probably didn't
away
want to
from
think that you had it. It's like not my daughter. And a lot of people will be like, depression, well, you can get out of bed, or like as if depression is just someone who just doesn't move. And it's
it. Right.
not like you can be completely functioning and have depression.
Exactly.
All this stuff. And that's the stuff that now people, are starting to be opened up. But I think it has to be, in a supportive way. And also people, with good intentions. It's like when you lose your child, I mean, people like, some people just don't know. And I'm pretty forgiving. Like I'm in groups where people are not like they're, people can say things which like, doesn't define you, or, and meaning well, which is, some well-meaning, that's a well meant, intentioned comment, but it's actually, no, it actually does define me, actually. It doesn't define everything. I mean, other things, but who, like, I feel like someone doesn't know who I am if they don't know that I lost my daughter.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
that's just, it's so, you're like when she died, it was like every cell in my body is being resculpted. I felt it immediately. It was like you can feel it. Um, and all that, yes, like, and it's because people are afraid. They're afraid to, like, they don't want people to be, I think, I did that a little bit too. Like in the beginnings, I didn't know any better. Like, be like, don't you understand? Like they're trying to explain, like, if you eat, your body needs food, like gasoline in a car, all this stuff. But it does, that's the powerlessness. This is why, it's like, no, it doesn't. But I guess I should talk about the LEL project.
Yeah. So as you get, so this project is coming out when?
Okay, so this is the thing. It's a project. The reason, originally it was like, oh, we're just gonna, we're gonna re-release her music. We have reimagined versions of the songs that existed. Thankfully, I have amazing producers and songwriters that work with Lael. I run a record label, so we have like top world class team. And they started like reimagining her stuff, but we have like songs that were never heard before as well. Songs that, like, right before she died, she started writing new songs, and it was literally like just the first demo, like on an iPhone, with the producer Tomas Donker,
Sure.
like just the initial, like nothing. But we were able, because of technology now, extract her vocal because she's such a good voice. The vocal was intact, even on this demo that wasn't even like fully fleshed out yet, and they created tracks around it. So there's like never heard before stuff. There's covers that she did. We're going to release the first cover song that she did, an Adele song. It's incredible. The video is unbelievable. Anyway, um, so there's that. Like I said, it's just her as an artist. That was the initial thing. Like, let's just get her music out there because she's incredible. She's a talent, you know? Then it was like, okay, so what exactly? So what do I want out of this? Yes, I want people to hear music, but then I realized, no, it's more. It's like I said, I want to continue her legacy of helping people. I want to be part of the, let's share her story via her music and her writings. And again, we have plays that we've written together that she contributed, and she contributed her journals, things when she was young and what her struggles were, because that's what she wanted. And that's, what I like, continuing that legacy, and what I want and the family wants, like just to, you know, so I would love people to, in the project, to reach out and share that story, and in whatever capacity it is, team up with other people who are doing this. I have no problem, you know, talking to people about it, being open to talking to people about, bringing her stuff in, and just kind of in her name, via music and art and storytelling and playwriting and just talking, to really, and to show like there's hope. And I know she died, and so first I was like, well, but she didn't live. Like, how is this an inspiration? But it
Right.
was an inspiration because she she had she slipped, was slipped. I don't even say slipped. She had an impulse that day. The day she actually died wasn't impulsive. Not all her suicide attempts were impulsive. That one was. And that, you know, but that doesn't mean that her message is killed because she died. Like, her message is still stay alive. Even in the suicide note that she left, it was, I'm going to be cheering you on as you live your lives. Like, I'm here. And also, like, finish the play. We were doing this play at the time. It's going to be amazing. So, like, her thing is, you know, it's just continuing.
So are you going to do workshops around this
I
to
would, you
people
know,
out?
it's just like we're just starting to like we just, because we just started like the website is up, but it's the beginning, it's lelproject.com. The initial releases of the songs are coming out, I'd say, within the next month or so. And yes, and also like workshops, me like here, like I'm here on this podcast. I'm willing to do workshops. I'm willing to bring other people in if they have things to say. I do shows around this. I also, and it's not, I'm not here to promote me as like an artist. I'm just saying, but my music and my shows that I do, this is what I do now. This is my art. And it kind of always was. I'm an artist that talk, it's like Holocaust survivors. Some never talk about it and some always talk about it. Whatever heals you. So for me, definitely sharing is healing. I think for a lot of people,
Absolutely.
and so I just want, yeah, I'm just starting to let people know, and it's going to build. It's going to build as the songs get out, and we hear other people's stories, and build around. And I just want people to know that, I say this, and I end every show with this, but I really mean it, and it's like part of like one of the songs I wrote, but it's just like for me, it's like I want to be like the best thing, like once my daughter died, it's like the big dreams are not what I need or what is necessary for me to be. What it is connection with people. I love connecting with you right now, Karen. I want to connect with people. I want to be alive with you. I mean, really, like I'm always like I'm in the room with you. This is as good as it gets, and this is fantastic. Right here, right now, connecting with people, doing theater, doing things, or just talking, having dinner. That's that's the stuff that keeps us alive and what makes me want to be alive. I know it's not that simple with people who are depressed. I'm not at all being like, oh, just have dinner with friends and your depression, and you'll be fine. Not at all. It's just, you know, we're out here and we're living, experiencing our lives, and life is hard. I discovered that. I mean, I didn't know it when I was young because I was fortunate. I had an okay childhood. It was okay. But wow, you know? And so let's kind of,
When
yeah.
when Beatrice recommended your story to me, my first reaction was absolutely for the same reason you're talking about. It's about connecting. It's about understanding. I understand so much more now in this short period of time than I did before we started. You know,
Mhm.
yes, my heart was aching for you, and it still does, but in a different way. Okay. Because what you're going to share continuously is the beauty that your daughter brought to her 24 years of life. And sadly, some of us don't look at it that way. When somebody takes their life, all we think about is that last moment. And it's like, there's so much more.
Exactly.
And I will agree with you that sometimes when our children are going through depression, our first reaction is we want to tell them, come on, let's change, the scenario. And I tried that with my son, and I found that it was the worst thing. He had one meltdown after another. It was like, don't tell me to change.
Mhm.
Let me tell you why. And he was very good at telling me why. And some of the reasons when I heard them, and I'm sure the same thing for you, felt hurtful. It was like, but I'm mom. I'm supposed to take care of you.
Right.
We only can do so much.
Exactly.
So I'm hoping that our listeners will continue to follow you. We're going to have you back on next month on a show that is so dear to me, and we call it Grief Belief. And the reason I started this with a panel of women is we all think we're the only ones who are grieving. And the reality of it is we're not, but we're all going to grieve in life. And there is no, I don't care what they say, but there's grief stages. It doesn't make any difference.
Mhm. I'm
It
like,
is us. Yeah.
I'm making a face. I'm like, grief stages.
So again, I'm looking forward to listening to the music. I
Oh,
really
thank
want to
you.
hear it.
Do you have any of them? Yeah, I will send. I mean, well, we'll certainly, of course, thank you, and we'll let you know when it's and I can send you some even previews if you'd like, because it's really special, honestly. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank
And I
you.
hope I got out what the LEL project is, but keep it, yes. And just the thing is also, I know we're ending, just to say that, like, you know, people get angry when you can't fix people, and people don't appreciate it when we like just trying to fix instead of like let them have their feelings and their thing and their space instead of like, okay, how do we fix this? Because it's you just sometimes we just want people, and to hold space and just be there and hear. And sometimes maybe the parent is not the best person if it's a child because we're too emotionally connected, and it's very counterintuitive to a parent to be like, okay, but we learn. And but for other people to know too, like, listen, they say there's an expression, thank God we're not all crazy at the same time. I don't know if you've heard that. But it's true. Because when one person can help someone, it's we're all. And so I really thank you so much for all the work you're
Thank
doing. I'm
you.
looking forward to coming on to the one. And that's my son's birthday, by the way, November 18th.
Oh, well, remind me and we'll wish him a happy birthday. So
Yeah. So
there's
thank
always good things that happen in this world.
absolutely. Every minute. That's the thing, every minute. So
Have a wonderful day.
you too, Karen. So
Talk
great
to you soon. Bye
to
bye.